At LSI, we don't just follow trends, we help shape the future. Welcome to Behind the Win, the podcast where we break down the biggest moves in tech, innovation, leadership, and government contracting. Here at LSI, we're bringing you exclusive conversations with the minds behind groundbreaking advancements, disruptive strategies, and industry-defining wins. From retail to tech, defense to government solutions. This is where you get the insights to stay ahead. Let's go behind the win.
Welcome back to Behind the Win. Today I'm joined by Angie Osguthorpe, the CEO of the Davis Chamber of Commerce. Angie has spent her career championing businesses, strengthening local economies, and bringing leaders together at a time when connection and advocacy matter more than ever. Today we're talking all things chambers of commerce, why they still matter, why they matter more now than ever, and how chambers are evolving to support businesses through uncertainty, growth, and change. Ange, thanks.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show. We're glad to have you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We're going to jump right in. Let's start with you, though. But how did your path lead to chamber leadership, and what originally drew you to this work?
You know, that's a great question, and everybody has their, their path through life or whatever. I actually was grew up in Missouri, got a couple of degrees. I actually went on an LDS mission to Portugal, got my master's at BYU.
Okay.
Got married, stayed, much to the chagrin of my parents, and was a stay-at-home mom, kind of. Had lots of part-time jobs, this and that, taught at University of Phoenix for 10 years, did this and that. But then I needed to get a full-time job. And actually, this is a funny story. Kim Bouchard, who owns Roosters and all that, she let me know. She goes, "Hey, the chamber's hiring," and it was like Sarah, it was like it was meant to be. You know, Jim Smith, who used to be the commissioner, was my boss. But then we talked on the phone. I interviewed, and then 3 days later, I'm the director of sales and events. And then 5 years later, he is elected to county commissioner, and they did a kind of a region search, and I was lucky enough to be called up, and that's been 11 years ago that and I've been that. I know, right? So I've been there for 16 years, and I just still love it, and I get to hang out with wonderful people and do wonderful things, be a part of the community. What more could you want, right?
Yeah, and I mean, there's not anybody that I meet that doesn't know who you are for sure. So, I mean, it's my segue in, right? When I talk to them. But so 11 years, you've been doing it for 11 years.
At the president, 11.
Okay.
The chamber altogether, 16.
Oh, wow.
So I know pretty much all of the different moving parts, so it's good.
I love that.
Yeah.
So talking about early on with education, different things, or your career, what did it teach you about business owners and community leadership?
You know, the thing about the chamber that I love one of the most is that we meet everybody. We meet the people who are just starting out, passionate. They have an idea. They don't know how to do it. They don't know where to go. And then we get to show them some resources. And then we meet, of course, all of the CEOs and the people who have just great mentors and all of that. I love that we get that whole gamut. So I think it's probably taught me, among so many things, is how to talk to anybody, and that people are just people. It doesn't matter, you even if you're the CEO of a company, put you in a yoga class and you're just like the rest of us, floundering in the back, So we each have our space that we know what we're doing, and the space that we can learn and grow. So
what do you say, and maybe this is kind of off topic, but like for our listeners, when someone's like, yeah, hey, I'm a small business, why should they join a chamber?
Yeah. That's a really good question, because, a lot of times we'll find that they are so engulfed in doing the doing, but the chamber has resources. I mean, I always want our new members to say, who are the 3 people that you need to meet? We've got them right here. We know the county, we know the health department, we know different businesses, we know Davis Tech and all of the SBA and the BRC and all those resources that we can help them connect to. And when you're just starting out in your small business, it's lonely too. And really, people learn to find their tribe and their friends and things like that. So I think the resources and the connections and just, it's finding your tribe.
I think that's true. And I was laughing because someone had asked me last week, I don't know if it was Terry, Hensley or Hoop, it was like, hey, are you going to the women business event that's in, the next week? I was like, listen, the last time I went, I'm on the board of a Blue Star Families. I'm now an executive director, first member of TUMAC. I was like, I don't know how many of those I can afford to go to, because it's great because they were in my group and I sat down with them and they're awesome. I love all those ladies now, right? But and so I'm like, I just took on more responsibilities, but it's funny because now I'm always like, listen, don't go to those unless you have some shit to do. Unless you got, you know what I mean?
You want to be involved, and which is awesome. And you ask a busy woman, a busy person, that's who gets the things done, right?
So I love that you say that because I coached drill team for 13 years, and one of my team moms who had it 3 years, she was and she would say, you ask a busy person to do something and they'll get it done, which is nuts, because then I was like, I was a full-time mom. My oldest son was playing at Northridge and we were team mom, I was team mom, but do you think none of the ones, I won't even mention what they're doing, but like they weren't helping. We had 75 parents to help us, but it's like the ones who were working 2 jobs,
right? Right. Exactly. They know how to do it.
Was there a moment when you realized chambers could be this real force for impact and not just networking groups? Like for advocacy and pushing and, getting the stuff that people care about and want.
Yes. And the thing that you do find is that every company has a different need and a different want.
Sure.
So you come and get involved, and I will put our networking groups up against anybody, but also legislation. If you have a bill, I don't care if you're a chamber member or not a chamber member, come to us. We can get with the creator, the sponsor, and say, hey, you know what? This is a great bill. We see why you did it, but this part right here has unintended consequences that is going to hurt this business.
Right.
And it's amazing to me how those legislators are like, oh, okay, we get it. So advocacy, education, we had in our Women in Business Summit, speaking of that, our first speaker was, she was over the Office of AI Policy. And I said, hey, we need to get our women, our folks, thinking about this and what's happening, and it was so awesome afterwards. The people, a couple of them came up and said that was over my head, and I'm like, that was good. That's what was intended.
Sure.
But some of them are like, you opened my eyes. This was education. This was, and then the next person would say, the second speaker just inspired me to do this, and I learned how to, so I love that. So there's all kinds of different advocacy. We have also with our legislation, we have 8 subcommittees. So if you're interested in military affairs, education, healthcare, capital facilities, business and labor, utilities, et cetera, you come and you can get that and know about that. Also, one of the most important things we do is NUC, Northern Utah Chamber Coalition. So not only do we do it for our area, but we get together. We've got Davis, Weber, Box Elder, Cache, Morgan, and Rich. We come together on a greater level and say, hey, let's see what are the regionally significant projects that we need to push as a whole.
Right.
And then when we do that, our legislators, first of all, love it because they're like, we're not fighting and they're not having to write. And then also, then we can get resources up here in the north instead of it going, to the 800-pound gorilla of Salt Lake or down to Utah County. And not that we don't want the best for them as well, but we're here to represent, businesses here.
Absolutely.
So.
How has being CEO of a chamber challenged or stretched you personally as a leader? Because to me, I feel like you are just naturally gifted with talking to people, right? And being engaging. So is there something that has challenged or stretched you in this position?
Yes, and I think this probably happens to every leader, is that when you have a staff and all the employees that come through and the people, you realize that they are all, and this goes without saying, but they're all different. And they all speak different languages, so to speak, about what they're passionate about, how they want to work, what's the best way to communicate with them. And just having, it's not a cookie cutter, one size fits all. You've got to have their own interest in mind, and then also bring them together. And that is sometimes natural, and sometimes you have to work at it. But it's really fun for me to have a group of strong, independent thinkers that come together and can realize, hey, they have that strength I don't have. I have this strength. Let's work together and build something. And because the culture is really important and making it positive, making it a fun place to be. I'm like, if it's not going to be fun, I don't want to be there. So I think that's something definitely. And then, of course, we all step into those places where, I mean, when I was first, when they came and told me that I'm going to be the president, you don't feel worthy. You don't feel like you can do it.
Imposter.
But then, exactly. But then you, as you learn and grow, then you grow into that position. And I remember when I was fairly new as a president, and I was trying to do, scurry around and do all the stuff. And they're just like, honor your position. You know what I mean? Just honor it, and to grow into that leadership. And I'm not real calm, but just a calmness, and things are going to work out. I had an employee
Right,
that
figure it
says,
out, yeah.
"You always say things are going to work out, and they always do." I'm like, "Yeah, let's work on it together. We can do great things together."
Right. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like there is sometimes a perception or connotation, right, around chambers that it's like, oh, they're nice to have, or they want to cut when it's but and maybe a little bit of the same, but why do you think chambers matter more now than they ever have
Yeah.
before?
That's a good question. Back in the day, the chambers were the city parades and the Easter egg hunts, and so we have grown up as well. One of the events that we've given up some events that were good events. The Balloon Fest out at the Antelope Island was before I even came along. Our Taste of the Town event was a great community event. Had 3,000 to 4,000 people come every time, but when COVID came, that helped as well. But we just were like, our restaurants are struggling getting enough people to our event, and then and then the health department has theirs. And when it was no longer good for them, they were doing it as a favor to us. Then we no longer did that. So
Right.
Also another thing is that we like to consider ourselves a 3C chamber: catalyst, convener, and a champion. We can make things happen.
Yep.
We bring people together, and that's one of the most fun things to do, is have our board of governors come together, or whatever committee or whatever, come together and get to know each other and get to learn from each other. And then a champion, our awards banquet, our ribbon cuttings. The people still want to, celebrate, and we want to celebrate with them all the things, whether they're a new one, whether it's a new wing of a hospital, or a witch's brew coffee shop. We want to celebrate with them, and that's one of my favorite things to do as well.
I love that. And when I first I've been CEO now for almost 2 years,
Yeah.
but I remember one of the first things my board, I have a couple of people on the board that just said, we need you to get involved in the chambers. We need you to get involved. And I was like, really? Like I just send my people to them, or, you know what I mean? So I think some of us and people out there are uneducated about it, right? And what you guys offer and what you bring. And so attending the events and stuff, I think really, brings people, it educates them. You get to know, you to network, and it doesn't matter. Like you said, I've had you reach out to connections or set up meetings for me before. And then someone who's starting, a blanket business that has 4 employees, like it's across the gamut. And what you guys do is customize, right? Like you said, it's not cookie cutter.
Right.
And we say the same thing about our offerings with clients too, is like, we're going to customize it for you.
Absolutely.
It's especially configured for you,
Yeah.
So it's a lot.
And Sarah, you do it right. The smaller business, of course, are usually like one-man bands, or they have just a few. But when you have a bigger organization and you can say, okay, I'm going to be on the board of governors and TUMAC and our military affairs, which is so important. I'll send some of some of your female employees have been so grateful to you that they got to go to Women in Business, and they're just like, and I say, tell Sarah we're grateful, and they're like, we're grateful. So I think you do it right.
And they love it, like the leadership series, just to do some different things.
Yeah,
So
Leadership Institute. Yep, the whole bit.
I think it's amazing. What are business owners facing today that you've seen just in the 2025? Different, different, or could be same, but just what are they facing today that you've looking at?
Exactly. Of course, workforce is always an
And in what
issue.
sense? Like
Yes.
keeping the workforce, or what?
Basically all of the above.
Okay.
It's slowed down a little bit, and it's interesting as you go through the years to say, are the companies have the upper hand and they, there's more workers than, or are there fewer workers and they have
Right.
the upper hand?
Where's the ball in which court?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think mostly it is having the right kind of workers. And I'll do a couple examples. The skilled workers. I mean, my two oldest children, there was no question you were going to college and you were graduating. And my younger one, I have a little bit of a caboose like you. And I'm like, you know what? You want a welding certificate? You want to do something in the
Go
trades?
do it.
You're going to rule the world. And so those are kinds of things. Of course, AI figures into that. Here's another thing too, when we're always talking about the younger generation and how we, speak to them and how we can get them engaged. The thing that I really am passionate about is we need to teach those younger generation how to speak face to face and how to network and how to do that. They just can't be behind a screen all the
Right.
time if they want to do their best.
Yep.
So yeah, so those are just some of the things. Another thing in our footprint is we're running out of free space. We are. I mean, if people want to come in and they want to build, we're running out of land, and we got to figure out how to do that. We're running out of water.
Yep.
There's only so many roads. So I mean, I came from a really small town in southern Missouri, and it is still tiny. And when you were there, you're like, and you could stay there, but you probably weren't going to. So what I'm saying is, it's a good problem to have, but growth is still a problem,
Yeah.
right?
Still got to
We
be
got
evolving with it.
exactly. We got the Olympics staring us, in the next eight or 9 years too, and that's just going to shine a bigger light, which is awesome, but brings challenges, right?
Yep. Do you feel like
Infrastructure.
I like with the ones up here, I know you work, but do you feel like with other chambers, do you guys feel like you're in competition, or you guys feel like you all work together because you see like, hey, this is our area,
Yeah.
there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know what? I have wonderful colleagues, and across the state. I'm part of the Utah Association of Chambers. Was chair a couple of years ago, and we come together twice a year, once or twice a year, and just go over best practices, and we share. We've had I've had different chambers come to me and say, "Hey, we want to start our leadership institute," and I'll just hand them all of our stuff and say, "This is a good place to
Yeah, why
start."
not? Yeah.
Exactly,
I love
not
that.
start. Now, the nice thing is we are one chamber in all of Davis County, but and Salt Lake, they are a little bit closer together. But I just like to say, you know what? There's plenty to go around. We've got a great sister chamber in the Ogden Weber Chamber, and we have our military affairs together. We have Nuke together. We sometimes get to our ambassador groups, our Lakesiders and the Spikers, and we call it the Spike Siders event. So I really like to say we're in this together, and we need to elevate each other and get our story out and our message out. So that's how I like to see it.
And for people that are outside of our state, because we have offices in California and DC, where does everyone have, and this may be a really dumb question, but does every place have a chamber? Like start at the county level or start like where?
Good question. Good question. So there's different kinds of chambers. We are not a tourism, and we're not necessarily economic development in that we get other states to come to us. We are a chamber that when businesses are here, we want to elevate them. But other places do. They're all of the things because they're smaller. But also, so yes, so there are lots.
Someone in California with a business was like, just find whoever your county is first and see who the chamber is.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, the one thing I wanted to say that I thought you were going to is that we have it really good here, and that we get to work. That cities worked well together. We're great partners with the county. We're great corporate partners. In some places, and you mentioned the state. When I go to conferences there, it's a totally different story, and they're almost like they're
That's why I asked. We've been to Sandag. We have
Yes.
contracts in California. We have them in 8 different states, but sometimes that's a little bit different, and we're competing. And
Yeah.
the first thing I thought, I came from financial services and not into government contracting until Shauna brought me here 5 years ago. But I thought, wait, how come no one's talking to each other? Why doesn't anyone tell each other what the hell's going on? Why don't we So they don't do that.
Yeah.
And you're right. The Davis County is great because we're part of Salt Lake Chamber. We're part of different chambers because we have clients or, different needs in every area. But up here it is great because I've met all the mayors and they're wonderful. Like
Yes.
Mark, there's tons of them.
Yes.
So I love that they show up to events
Yes.
and,
Yeah. We get together. I'm part of the Council of Governments. I have a seat there, and the mayors come together, and sometimes we have a mayor's luncheon every May at the chamber, and they start joking with each other so much that it almost makes some of our members uncomfortable, like they're giving each other a hard time. I'm like, they're old friends.
Like they're
just teasing each other, right? So I have to keep reminding them that, but it doesn't happen like that in other places that, they work together and are friends and all that. And of course, people still have their territories and what the things that they want to accomplish. But collaboration in Utah and Davis County is probably, I would put it up against any place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. Kudos. Can you think of an example where the chamber or your chamber, which is preferable, has made a tangible difference for a business in the region that you're like, okay, hey, we just did this, last year, and this is what happened?
Well, this is a small example, but I'm going to use your company as an example. This is just one little small thing. I went over the holidays to drop something off to you. You weren't here, and I started talking to Whitney and she said, I'm so glad I was at the expo, and I'm really glad that the Iron Gate Catering Grill was at the expo because we had them cater our big lunch.
They were phenomenal.
Exactly right.
Yes.
Right?
I didn't know that's where she got it.
Yes, at our expo.
My gosh.
So you can imagine, as one of my favorite things is every day I get to hear, oh, I was there and I connected with these people, and and our leader of our business alliance, Cindy Jessup, I built my entire business on the chamber. So I love those kinds of things. Every day I get to hear those. Another example is when COVID hit. We have a really good open rate on our newsletter, but people were religious about reading our newsletter because we had all of the, what's happening, information and all of that. I really loved that. Another example is Leadership Institute. I remember this was several years ago, and Wasatch Integrated Waste was presenting to our Leadership Institute, and Pioneer Adult Rehabilitation Centers. They were there too, and the Wasatch Integrated Waste, where the dump is, they were like, we really want to recycle some of the stuff that goes in, but we don't have anybody. We want to do a thrift store. We don't have anybody. And so Park was there, and they were there, and they got together, and a thrift store where the Park employees, which are the adults who need, that are awesome, but can't have jobs like you and I.
Yeah.
And it was just a match made in heaven. It was awesome. So those kinds of
up here at that one.
Yeah. Huh?
Yes, I've been in that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think it was called the Give and Take or something like that. I think they still do it, but those are the kinds of connections that make a real difference, Another one that I really, really appreciated was our Women in Business. The service project this year was the Airman's Attic on Hill Air Force Base. And since then, and we, of course, all the year we were advertising, and we had a great service project, but two of our companies, big companies, Benell Aluminum and First Community Bank, they took that and ran with it, and their entire companies over the holidays. You guys did too.
Well, and we only did it because I'd seen, we were already looking for something. I literally came to the business and that I acquired 3 new jobs. And I came and they had her there, and I went up and said, hey, we're doing a drive right now. We didn't know who. She said, here, switch this stuff. Yeah. And we had, I have the pictures. It's crazy, but it's because of that. And we've taken 4 loads up since. Yeah. That was in October or whatever it was, or November.
So I love that when we just raise awareness for different, and that's how we not only help our business community, but we help the community in general with all of those that, needs and awareness and connections.
Yes.
And then getting awesome, busy women and men who are come to our events and then have 2 or 3.
And we were like, we're going to do it now in the spring and the fall every year. And here's why I love it. And this is maybe unpopular opinion. I don't really care. But is that I say to people, like, give it to these guys, not other places unnamed that are going to sell it and make money.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Right.
I give it to someone like, and when she told us at that event that some of them are living on $6 until the next paycheck, especially during a shutdown, and that they can't buy new clothes. I was like, this is horrible. These are the people protecting our country, and they don't have shit.
Exactly.
They can't even, you know what I mean? So,
and they're here and their families aren't even here.
Yes.
Think about how lonely that is, and maybe
or that they're all scraping together the canned foods to like make them last until the CR cake. I was like, this is insane to me.
Yeah.
So I think that 100% that one was amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Thanks for joining us on Behind the Wind. Tune in next time for part 2 of Angie Osguthorpe's on Why Chambers Matter.